This story is in the theme of opposites attract. When I was a young man, I was an only child, tall, lean, shy, nerdy, athletic, introverted, blonde hair, and of Northern European descent, which meant that I wasn't the most passionate. In high school, I met a young woman who was short, curvy, dark hair, curly dark hair, Jewish, passionate, and she had three very outspoken sisters. We couldn't be more different, but in high school, we found those differences exciting. And so we dated throughout high school, we and into college, dated in college off and on. We still were very attracted to each other when we graduated, and so without a tremendous amount of thought, we got married. We didn't think too much about it, certainly didn't think about our differences. It was the thing to do. So we got married and we had a plan as far as the family goes. We were going to wait 5 years. Well, yikes. 18 months after getting married, child number one comes along. And it seemed like we had boarded a train at that point, and the train was picking up speed very, very quickly. A few years later, my wife goes first, back to graduate school, goes to law school. Baby number two, right in the middle of law school. A few years later, I go back to graduate school, MBA for me, and you guessed it, child number three is born right in the middle of my graduate studies. At this point, this train that we're on is just flying. It is going like a bat out of hell. And there's no time at all to be thinking about differences or anything else. We're just hanging on. But it's also very expensive in the Bay Area, and money was always very, very tight. And so I started looking at what other opportunities I might have. And I came along, what came along was an executive role in a similar field in Portland, Oregon. So I took it and moved us up to Portland, Oregon. And that's where we experienced a train wreck. Because in moving from the Bay Area to Portland, all of our key and important relationships, family and friends, had largely been severed. And it was a time also where my wife, now an attorney, tried to find work in Oregon, and she was blocked at all attempts because the Oregonian law firms wouldn't hire a California lawyer. So she was very, very frustrated and, no surprise, angry. And this is when our differences loomed large. They were like major boulders in our path. And my wife, in looking for a way to vent her frustration, did what everybody would do, right? She wrote a novel. And as some of you may know, a first novel tends to be a little bit autobiographical. Well, in this case, take away the tends to. So my wife's novel that she was writing was about a family of five who lived in the Bay Area, and the overly ambitious, thoughtless husband moved the family to Portland, Oregon. In this story, the husband, whose name is Tom, whereas I am Tim, you see how close this was. It seemed like we were kind of living out this novel. She was writing it as we were living it. What I saw happening as she was writing is that inevitably Tom would end up having a painful death. Our marriage at that point was really, really in a tough, very, very difficult place. I wasn't sure that we were going to survive. But eventually, probably because Our relationship was long. We had started out as kids, getting to know each other. Because of that, and maybe because we worked hard at it, gradually we were able to see that our differences were not so much a problem as much as they were strengths that each other had, and that when we looked at those strengths from a couple's point of view, each other's strengths were somewhat complementary, which really meant that as a couple, we were stronger than if we were alone individually. And when I think about the theme of opposites attract, the thought occurs to me that this might actually even be kind of a Darwinian aspect of society in general, is having people who have complementary skills who can survive better together. Anyhow, we worked at it, and luckily we made it through that very, very difficult patch by looking at our differences as strengths. And I am very pleased to say that in July of 2026, we are now celebrating our 48th wedding anniversary, and we are welcoming our 7th grandchild into the fold of our wonderful expanded family. Thank you very much.